Have you ever wondered what it would be like to witness the end of the world? In 1961, the Soviet Union detonated a nuclear bomb that unleashed a force so unimaginable it could have turned that horrifying vision into reality. The Tsar Bomba, meaning king of bombs, wasn't just a weapon. It was a monstrous testament to human ingenuity gone astray. In this video, you will know what is a Tsar Bomba, who invented it, how does the Tsar Bomba work, is it the scariest weapon of the century or not, what did the Tsar Bomba tests lead to, and the most important question is, what are we afraid of now? The year is 1945. The Second World War has just ended, leaving behind a world scarred by unimaginable destruction. Yet, amidst the ashes of victory, a new kind of fear began to take root, the fear of nuclear annihilation. The United States had ushered in the atomic age with the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, a display of power that sent shockwaves across the globe. The Soviet Union, wary of American dominance, embarked on a relentless pursuit of its own nuclear program. Fueled by mutual distrust and ideological differences, the US and the USSR entered a tense standoff known as the Cold War. This wasn't a conventional war with soldiers and battlefields. It was a war fought in the shadows, a race for technological supremacy with nuclear weapons as the ultimate prize. The first years of the Cold War saw a rapid acceleration in the nuclear arms race. Both superpowers stockpiled atomic bombs, each detonation a chilling reminder of the potential for global catastrophe. The US detonated the first hydrogen bomb in 1952, a weapon far more powerful than the atomic bombs dropped on Japan. The Soviets responded with their own thermonuclear device just a year later. On one side of the Iron Curtain stood the United States, a nation brimming with scientific prowess and industrial might. Leading the American charge were figures like J. Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb, and Edward Teller, the father of the hydrogen bomb. These men, along with countless others, dedicated their intellect to building ever more destructive weapons. Across the divide stood the Soviet Union, a nation shrouded in secrecy and driven by a deep sense of paranoia. The key figures were scientists like Igor Kurchatov, the head of the Soviet atomic bomb project, and Andrei Sakharov, a brilliant physicist who would later become a prominent voice for nuclear disarmament. The Cold War wasn't just a theoretical threat, it manifested in real-world crises that brought the world to the brink of nuclear war. The Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962 stands as a chilling example. When the US discovered Soviet nuclear missiles stationed in Cuba, just 90 miles from American shores, the world held its breath for 13 tense days. Thankfully, cooler heads prevailed, and a diplomatic solution was reached. However, the Cuban Missile Crisis served as a stark reminder of the hair-trigger nature of the Cold War and the devastating consequences that could result from a single miscalculation. It was in this atmosphere of heightened tension that the Tsar Bomba was born. The first stage of the Tsar Bomba relied on a process called nuclear fission. Inside the bomb's core was a fissile material, typically enriched uranium or plutonium. These elements have unstable atomic nuclei, meaning they're prone to splitting when bombarded with neutrons. When a neutron collides with a fissile nucleus, it triggers a chain reaction. The nucleus splits, releasing enormous amounts of energy and additional neutrons in the process. These neutrons collide with other nuclei, causing further fission and a cascading release of energy, a self-sustaining reaction that forms the core of a fission bomb. The second stage of the Tsar Bomba employed a more complex process called nuclear fusion. Here, the goal wasn't splitting atoms but forcing them to combine. The bomb housed isotopes of hydrogen, namely deuterium and tritium, which are fused under extreme pressure and temperature to form helium. This fusion releases even more energy than fission, hence the immense destructive power of thermonuclear weapons. The third stage, the fission tamper, was bathed in the neutrons released by the fusion reaction, causing it to undergo fission itself, significantly boosting the overall yield. The Tsar Bomba's immense size, a staggering 26 feet long and nearly 7 feet in diameter, weighing in at a colossal 27 tons, posed a logistical nightmare. Modified Tu-95 bomber aircraft, the workhorses of the Soviet Air Force, had to undergo extensive modifications to accommodate the bomb. The bomb bay doors were removed, and the fuel tanks were replaced with smaller ones positioned further away from the weapon to avoid accidental detonation. The delivery method for the Tsar Bomba was as unconventional as the weapon itself. A specially designed parachute system was incorporated to slow the bomb's descent, allowing the bomber crew enough time to escape the blast zone. However, the parachute deployment altitude was still incredibly high, meaning the crew had to eject at a dangerously high speed, increasing the risks involved in the mission. The immense power of the Tsar Bomba also raised serious safety concerns. The initial design boasted a theoretical yield of 100 megatons, enough to cause widespread destruction and long-lasting radioactive fallout over a vast area. In a last-minute decision, the Soviet leadership opted to reduce the Tsar Bomba's yield from its theoretical 100 megatons to a mere 50 megatons. This decision was likely motivated by concerns about the potential for widespread radioactive fallout and the damage the full force of the bomb could inflict on the remote testing ground itself. Even with the reduced yield, the Tsar Bomba remained a weapon of horrifying power. The initial detonation would create a fireball several kilometers wide, capable of instantly vaporizing everything within a 3-mile radius. A searing heat wave would extend outwards for tens of kilometers, incinerating anything in its path. The shockwave would be so powerful it could shatter windows hundreds of miles away. The mushroom cloud, reaching over 50 kilometers into the atmosphere, would be visible from a distance of over 1,000 kilometers. Andrei Sakharov was a man of immense contradictions. Born in Moscow in 1921, he displayed a remarkable aptitude for science from a young age. He excelled in physics and mathematics, eventually graduating from Moscow State University with top honors. During World War II, Sakharov's talents were directed towards the war effort. He participated in research on explosives, unknowingly contributing to the development of conventional weapons. After the war, Sakharov's brilliance caught the attention of the Soviet atomic bomb project. He was recruited to a top-secret program tasked with developing the USSR's first atomic bomb. Sakharov's theoretical contributions were instrumental in achieving this goal. The first Soviet atomic bomb was successfully detonated in 1949, forever altering the geopolitical landscape. While initially enthusiastic about contributing to Soviet scientific advancement, Sakharov gradually developed a moral conflict. He witnessed the devastating power of nuclear weapons firsthand and became increasingly troubled by the potential consequences of their use. However, despite his reservations, Sakharov continued his work on the hydrogen bomb, driven by a sense of national duty and a fear of Soviet technological inferiority to the US. His theoretical concept, now known as the Teller-Ulam design, became the foundation for the most powerful thermonuclear weapon ever built, the Tsar Bomba. The testing ground chosen for the Tsar Bomba wasn't a densely populated area or a military target. Instead, the Soviets opted for the remote Novaya Zemlya archipelago in the Arctic Ocean. On October 30, 1961, the Tsar Bomba was detonated. The explosion yielded a force equivalent to 38 megatons of TNT, 1,600 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The mushroom cloud soared over 50 kilometers into the atmosphere, visible from thousands of kilometers away. Sakharov, who had witnessed the detonation firsthand, was reportedly left awestruck and deeply troubled. The Tsar Bomba test proved to be a turning point for Sakharov. Witnessing the sheer destructive power of his creation solidified his anti-war stance. He began to speak out against nuclear proliferation and the arms race, a courageous act in a nation where dissent was not tolerated. Sakharov's outspokenness landed him in hot water with the Soviet government. He was stripped of his security clearances and exiled to a closed city in 1980. Despite the repression, Sakharov continued to advocate for nuclear disarmament. His influential writings and activism earned him the Nobel Peace Prize in 1975. He became a symbol of peace and human rights, not just in the Soviet Union but around the world. His unwavering commitment to peace ultimately played a role in the thawing of Cold War tensions and the signing of nuclear disarmament treaties between the US and the USSR. The environmental consequences of the Tsar Bomba test were severe and long-lasting. The radioactive fallout from the detonation spread across the Arctic region and beyond. Fish in surrounding waters were contaminated, and radioactive particles settled on land, posing a health risk to wildlife and potentially impacting indigenous populations. The test also disrupted the delicate Arctic ecosystem, raising concerns about the long-term ecological impact. Thankfully, the Tsar Bomba was never used in warfare, remaining a terrifying symbol of human ingenuity gone astray. The Tsar Bomba test, however, wasn't entirely without positive consequences. The sheer scale of the weapon's destructive power served as a wake-up call for both the US and the USSR. Public outcry against nuclear proliferation grew louder, and the devastating environmental impact of the test highlighted the dangers of nuclear war. These factors played a role in the signing of several key nuclear disarmament treaties in the decades that followed. Despite the progress made in nuclear disarmament, the shadow of the Tsar Bomba still looms large over the world today. Thousands of nuclear weapons remain stockpiled around the globe, posing a constant threat to humanity. The rise of new nuclear powers and ongoing geopolitical tensions raise concerns about the potential for nuclear proliferation and even accidental war.